everyone, it's Marie here. Welcome back to my channel. I've got another video for you today using the My Creative Scrapbook May main kit. So this layout I'm going to feature myself. That's a photograph of me. My husband and son and I recently took a trip to London and we spent 5 days there, I think, and did all the things, tried to fit everything, and we had some amazing experiences. So one of them was going up to the Sky Garden, which is a garden viewpoint at the top of a 37, I think you're on the 37th story. Basically you can see out over the whole of London, and it was the most spectacular view. It was wonderful. We also had lunch up there in the restaurant, which was fabulous, and this was just me taking some selfies, and you can see sort of the garden behind and then the London skyline as well. So because of these beautiful sort of the lines in the photograph, and I wanted to replicate that in my layout. I've seen this idea done, so I'm not going to take credit for it at all. Basically to cut up a sheet of white cardstock, distress the edges, and then have a patterned paper poking through. Now, as you can see here, I've started by using the green patterned paper from the kit. I actually changed that in a short while. It ends up being a different colour. But for now, I'm just kind of playing around with making this central cluster behind my photograph. So I've literally started with the photograph in the middle, and then I'm just picking out random bits of ephemera that I really like the look of, that I can sit behind the photo that work really well. So this idea of this sort of paper poking through the white, I've seen people do it in this orientation, in this diagonal. I've seen it done vertically. I've seen it done where people cut holes in paper and kind of make a hole without cutting all the way to the edges, if that makes sense. So lots of people have done this, and like I say, I'm not going to take credit for it, not my idea, but I thought it was a really effective way of having that interest while still having a white background. I do love a white background. So that's kind of where I've gone with this. So I'm just playing around now with placing a whole load of different pieces of ephemera on the background. As I'm doing this, I'm pretty sure in my mind that I'm not completely happy with the green behind. It's not quite the right colour for me. I am just now pulling out loads more of those fussy cut florals. So when I first got this kit, I did start by taking the floral sheet and the butterfly sheet that come with the main kit and fussy cutting every single element on there. So I had them ready because I knew that's what I was going to end up using them for when I made my layouts. So I just started with that. So I'm just, like I say, playing around. Here's the butterflies. Look, I've got those all in a little bag. So playing around with placing all my ephemera on and placing these floral clusters and these butterflies. Like I say, the colour just didn't, I don't know. I wasn't quite happy with the green. It looks fine. But yeah, I decided to change it as you'll see in just a moment, when I take everything off of here and then put it back onto a different colour. I love this idea of this central cluster though. I really liked the way it kind of drew everything in toward the photograph in the middle. So this is me now sticking on the strips. I will admit to you that I've cut a huge chunk of this out because I faff around with getting these in the right position for a ridiculous amount of time. So you'll see me stick a couple of them down, and then you'll see magically through the power of video editing that they're all stuck down. Hooray. I messed around, like I say, for a long time, just to try and get the distance between them right, and yeah, it took me a while. Anyway, so now I'm just going to do a little bit of distressing, folding back those edges so that there's more showing in different spaces. And then my page is now, because of the gaps, the page is now bigger than 12 by 12. It did require me to pop it into my trimmer and remove a small amount of paper from around the edges. Now what I'm doing here is gutting the cardstock that I've used for the background, basically so that I can use it to back my photo. The pink just works so much better for me here. I'm so much happier with this. Yeah, I liked it on the green, but I love it on the pink. Just having a little sip of tea. So I'm going to back my photograph now on the same paper that backs the rest of the page. And that kind of ties everything together. There are no real pinky colours other than, I suppose, my skin, pinky peachy in the picture, but and the picture is quite bluey green, but the pink just worked well with it and everything kind of matched. So just peeling the backs off the chipboard now to make it thinner so that it sits better behind the photograph than being quite so bulky. I always do this. And if you're really careful, you can get it all off. You just have to be really careful that you don't bend the top bit. So now I'm just going to basically build my cluster here on my desk without having the sheet of paper behind. I'm just going to literally place everything behind and make it work roughly, very roughly, where it was before. What you'll see me do with my hand there is I've got my phone off to the side. I have actually taken a photograph of the layout before I took everything off so that I can get everything roughly back in the same place that it was before. Otherwise, I'd have no chance. So just moving things around. I prefer using wet glue at this point for this sort of thing because it allows me to move things around before the glue completely sets. I find that easier. There we go. That's pretty much where everything's going. And then something else popping out from that side. I love building this kind of cluster. I think it just, yeah. It adds texture, it adds dimension, lots of interest, but the focus is still on the photograph itself. Now I'm going to use some bits of adhesive foam. I'm using lots of leftover bits and pieces here that I've got in my drawer. So I buy A4 sheets of this adhesive foam. I then obviously use bits, and there's always little bits left over, so I just keep them all in a little tub in my drawer, and then when I can be bothered, or when I've got funny shapes like this that I need to back, I will use the tiny little bits that I've got left over in my drawer so that it's all propped up and has a nice bit of dimension. So here comes my sheet. I'm gonna now start thinking, right, yep, that's gonna get stuck down there. I'm not gonna stick I was going to say I'm not going to stick all the way to the edges, but I actually do on this one. Pretty silly. Because I'm going to tuck lots of things in behind it still. So the photograph is slightly lower of centre, but that's because there's more embellishments above. So then I'm going to use glue gel, which is a dimensional gel, to start adding in my floral clusters and the rest of the embellishments I'm going to use. Just going to use the glue gel as I go along. I know roughly what it's going to look like. They don't need to go in exactly the same place they were in before. But I'm going to use some little ones, some big ones, and just have them all at jaunty little angles popping out from behind my photo. So where I've got my diagonal ripped lines, I'm then going to keep that diagonal idea going with the embellishments as well. I add in a few more than I had previously, and the whole cluster ends up a lot bigger. I still like the way it turns out in the end. So just playing around now. I'm going to add some butterflies on. I do love those butterflies. Like I said, on every layout. It was so worthwhile sitting and fussy cutting that whole sheet because I've used pretty much all of them by the end of my pages. I may have also bought an extra sheet of this, the butterflies, just because I know I'll end up using them again. So more flowers just being tucked in. I love that little bird. I really want to put the little bird on. Not sure at this point whether it works. But more butterflies finding their way onto the page. It needs a little bit more balancing yet. It's a little bit sort of bottom heavy at the minute, and it just needs some extra bits, some tweaking. So I've gone with some little butterflies that are flying sideways. They help to soften the kind of the ends of my diagonal off, if that makes sense. And then a few more bits and pieces added round. So just looking through my butterflies, try and find one that will work for what I want to do. I'm just going to take some thread. This is just normal 6-strand cross-stitch thread. And I keep a little tub of it in my drawer. I've got lots of different colours, and I'm just going to tuck that thread around. The only problem I find with storing the thread on these little bobbin things is they're flat and you end up with a crease line, which is very annoying, in the thread itself, which is very hard to get rid of. So I'm just going to play around now with a couple of stickers. So we've got one here. I do put it here, and then I realise it just looks really strange being there, and it's not right. So it doesn't stay there. It does actually move from there. I kind of half stick it down and then leave it and see if I'm going to leave it or move it. I do end up moving it. So then I find one other little sticker. I'm going to pop up at this top side over here, another little frondy leaf. That works quite nicely up there. And then another one down here just to balance it off, because they've got a sparkly gold tinge to them. You need one at both ends. They really soften the ends up. I like the way that they've really helped with the look of the shape of what I've done there. And then determined to put some more of these sparkly stickers on. They're so pretty. I found one here that says smile. I thought that was perfect. Just tucked in behind the flowers up at the top there. And then a couple of these words popped on the strips of paper as well. But I didn't like them, so they came back off. Don't ever be afraid to remove something from a layout if you don't like it. If it's not making me happy, it doesn't get to stay. And there we go. That is my layout. The one thing I did forget to record was me adding sequins at the end. So I do a sprinkle of sequins at the very end, and I also add my signature white splatters all over as well. Pretty standard for me, nothing new there, but the sequins really did just help to give it that final touch. Thanks ever so much for watching my videos today. I'll leave in the description box below links to my creative scrapbook, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye for now.